wish. Let us now explore some basic Git commands that are very useful for us in this tutorial. There is a lot more to Git than what we cover in this exercise. To get started, go to your convenient location in your computer and then create a folder named Git test. Then, open this folder in your favorite editor. Here, I have the Git test folder that we just created open. Let me add a file to this folder named index.html. Now you can see that I have added in some HTML code into this index.html file. Let's save the changes. Now let's switch to our command line. At the command line, go to the Git test folder, and let's initialize this folder to be a Git repository. So to do that, at the command line, type git init. Now, this folder has been initialized to be a Git repository. So this is our first Git command that we have learned, git init. This initializes the current folder as a Git repository, and when it initializes the folder, it will mark that folder as a master. This is the master branch for my Git. Now let's not worry about branches and so on, we will not deal with that in this. We will only be working with the master branch in this particular tutorial. So this would be marked as a master. Now this is the initial point of our repository. Command that we're going to look at is git status. If you type git status in the command line, it'll tell you the current status of the folder. So let's do that at the command line and see what it shows. At the command line, type git status and read the information that is typed out on the command window. You see that it says on branch master, so that is the master branch that we add on. And it says non-tracked files, and then shows index.html in red. On your specific computer, it may be using different colors or represent this differently, or this is what it shows on my Mac. So now, this index.html file that we have just created in this folder has now not been added to our Git repository. So let's go ahead and add that file to the Git repository. So to do that, we say git add, and you can simply say dot, which means that all the files in the current directory will be added to what is called as the staging area of my Git repository. So now, if I again type git status, you will see that the file index.html is marked in green. And it says changes to be committed there, and then shows the file name, and then so that means that this file is now ready to be committed to my Git repository. So, the next command that we saw was git add. By using git add, you can add file or folders to that staging area. So once you add it to the staging area, then you can commit that snapshot of our folder status to our Git repository. So that means that when you do the git commit, what this command will do is commit the current state of our folders into our Git repositories. So all the files as they exist at the moment, once they have been staged using the git add, then they will be committed to our Git repository when we execute the git command folder. So at this point, when we execute the git command, then our initial state will now be changed to the first commit to the Git repository. So let's go ahead and do that. Back at the command prompt, let's type git commit. And then we can even add a message to our commit. So I'm going to say git commit m first commit because this is our commit to our Git repository. So when I do that, it says, okay, one file has been added to the Git repository and some other information will be typed out onto the command window. So let's now check again, git status, and now you see that it says nothing to commit, working directory is clean. So what it means is that the current state of my working directory or working folder has been committed to the Git repository, so a snapshot has been committed to my Git repository. Now, I can type the next command called git log one line, and see that it shows a number there, an 8-digit number there. And then also it shows the message that we put into our commit saying first commit. So that is the log of all the commits that have been put into my Git repository. So, going back to our next git command, we saw that git log one line will show us a brief log of all the commits. If you simply type git log, display a lot more detailed information about all the commits. But this is sufficient enough for obtaining information that we require. Let's now come back to our editor here, in Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to add more changes to my index.html file. I have changed my index.html file. Now, let me add another folder under the git test folder, so I will create a subfolder here named templates, and inside these templates folder, I'm going to create another file named test.html. This is just to show you how Git can commit entire folder hierarchy into its repository. So with test.html now there, I'm just going to copy everything from my index.html into my test.html, and save the changes. Going back to the command line, let's now check out the status of Git repository this year. So type in git status, shows that the index status HTML that we have already handed earlier to the repository has now been modified, so there is a newer version of the index.html file. Also, it shows that there are some non-tracked files in this folder called templates. Let's add all these changes to the staging the area, so again, type git add. And then all these files will be added to the staging area. Again, checking out the status. You now see that changes that have been added to the staging area. So all these files have been added to the staging area. Let's do one more commit, so I would say git commit m, second commit, and then let's check out the log. If you check out the log, you'll now see that there are two commits in my Git repository, the first and the second commit. And note that each one of them is given a different number there. If you want to see their full details of the log, you can type simply git log and then you'll receive more details in there than what you would be interested in. So, notice that the one-line commit only gives the first few characters of my commit number there. That is sufficient enough for us to operate with. Let me now go back again to my Visual Studio, and then add one more. One more line to my index.html file. So now my index.html file has been modified. And let's save the changes. Going back to the command line, doing git status shows that index.html file has been modified. So let's add this to the staging area, and then do a third commit. So let's say git add git status. Now you see that the index.html, the modified version, has been added. Now we can say git commit, third commit, and do git log one line, and you see there are 3 commits in our repository. So now our repository contains snapshots of 3 different points, at the end of the first commit, at the end of the second commit, and at the end of the third commit.